Coming up on a special Arts in Focus.
I was blessed with a good memory. When I'm teaching somebody how to read music, I just explain everything.
DeVia is actually an art movement, and it stands for Deaf View Image Art.
The one thing about Sam is he doesn't present himself as someone with severe autism. That's an invisible disability.
Arts in Focus is made possible in part by a gift from Drs. Dawn and Jack Lipson to support performance, innovation, and accessibility of the arts in the Rochester community.
Hi, Kaylee. How are you?
Good.
Good. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. How about just holding a B flat for me just to warm up? When the pandemic hit, I was teaching at a Catholic school in Penfield, St. Joseph's. They started going virtual with classes. I said, I wonder if I approached the parents and say, let's try doing lessons via the internet. I was amazed at how well it actually started going. And it just seemed like kids almost were like more attentive, or I can't put my finger on it. That's one aspect of technology that has really helped. Hi, Kim, how are you? My name is Vince Ercolamento. I've been playing music since 1975. I came from a neighborhood in the city where there were a lot of guys playing, so I wanted to be a part of that. So the harmonica was one way to kind of fit in, and then I heard some saxophone recordings that I said, oh, well, that'll give me a little bit more versatility, and that's when I started playing. My visual impairment is called retina pigmentosis, and it's degenerative, it's hereditary. I have two brothers with the same thing. When I was younger, I could ride a bicycle, and I could see music back in the day. I could read music. But over time, my eyes have just gradually gotten worse and worse. So the reading of the music, that part of it has gone away, really. So I just rely totally on ear now. I was blessed with a good memory. So when I'm teaching somebody how to read music, I just explain everything. There, the F to the E flat, those are 2/8 notes, and you're kind of not playing those fast enough.
Oh, okay.
All right? And I think because I'm able to visualize in my mind the information, I try to get them to do the same. You know, so when you close the book, you have a picture of what you're supposed to be doing, you know, or what it's supposed to be. I think if they can do that, they're going to walk away retaining a lot more information. That's the note you want, right there. Being in this situation has given us the time, in a lot of sense, to try and be more creative. What else do you got? You know, you got to try and be creative, and whether it's writing music or just developing your own skills. Okay, that was better. Good. Okay, you got your other books?
Yep.
DeVia is actually an art movement, and it stands for Deaf View Image Art. And that's a term that was coined by a group of deaf artists and one deaf art historian in 1989. They came together because they were recognizing there was a rising tide of interest in expressing the deaf experience. I'm Susan Deas. My role has been working as essentially the lead educator. I am an outsider. I am a hearing individual. How I am understanding the deaf experience is thanks to this art and thanks to the individuals I've worked with.
My name is Tabitha Jacques. I'm the director of the Dyer Arts Center located at RIT and TID. My role with the MAG Divya exposition was I was head curator. This is a huge breakthrough to have a deaf-related art exhibit in a predominantly hearing museum. It's a huge breakthrough anywhere in the United States. One of the artists involved in the Divya art movement, her name is Nancy Rourke. So Nancy Rourke decided to establish a Divya challenge. So artists could learn about Divya and then participate in expressing their own deaf experience through their own art. It could be celebratory artwork, or it could be artwork that expresses frustration and isolation. So through that project, it allowed artists from just the beginnings of their career to those very adept, experienced artists to share their work in one place and collaborate together.
I hope that the hearing community understands the pride. This is a community, a robust community, a dynamic community.
When they see the Divya exhibit, I hope that they're proud. I hope they leave feeling a renewed sense of pride, a sense of, yeah, we matter in this whole world.
What an opportunity for an art museum that celebrates the visual arts and the deaf community that is extraordinarily visual in everything, that this will prove a place where we can meet.
I think that feeling of inspiration and being seen, having their culture being seen, and having their culture become part of the mainstream and the majority culture was huge. And there was a sense of validation among the community, that we do belong in this space and we belong in the Dyer Art Center and the Memorial Art Gallery.
The one thing about Sam is he doesn't present himself as someone with severe autism. That's an invisible disability. And photography is something he likes so much that he's very focused. A camera itself is very much a therapeutic tool.
I was at Hochstein, and first I was drew to music, and then they put my camera in my hands, and my first ever picture I took was at Hochstein. That's how I found out that I was in love with photography.
And the journey with Sam was very, very interesting because we started photography at 10 years old with his music therapist, and the goal was always for him to shoot people. So the first person he shot was Congresswoman Louise Slaughter. He was actually part of her campaign in 2012. And what I realized is that when he's looking through the lens, he's making eye contact with people because they're staring at the lens. And so that's how he started making eye contact with people.
I first started out shooting nature a lot. And then I moved on to fashion photography. You meet new people, so many great people through photography. How we met Julia, we posted on Facebook.
We were looking for a photographer for about 3 years, someone to mentor Sam, to teach him how to shoot.
At first it was hard because I was still learning, and she teaches lighting, poses, or fashion, all kinds of stuff. I have a program called Portrait Cares. We take photos for people that can't afford senior photos, like high school students.
Sam was part of a yearbook staff, and a couple of the seniors couldn't afford to get their photos done. So Sam did them, and it seemed like it fit. because he'll be able to meet young people during the process, which is a further social experience for him. Autism isn't something that you need to be scared about, but you also have to remember that if you were working with a person with any disability, you have to separate the disability from the personality. This is a different way of a brain working and understanding the world.
So for now, I want to focus on my business, taking high school senior photos, and then travel the world capturing beauty.
Hey, Sam. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Glad to be checking back in with you. So I know that you and your mom had this big road trip planned to go down to Louisiana in the spring, but that obviously got pushed around during COVID. So I'm curious what you've planned to do instead.
So what we plan to do instead for Autism on Routes 11 and 20 is going up to the tippy top of New York State, is to meet families along the way and go to different spots to get more photos for my business and everything.
Very cool. And I also heard that you're going to be practicing your driving on this trip as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I am.
Are you excited about that?
I'm very excited. I'm kind of nervous, honestly, because I never really been on, we're going to be going on the routes and everything, which they're really, really small roads and they're very, very narrow and everything because they're motorcycle routes and everything. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really, really good experience.
That's awesome. So other than the road trip kind of getting pushed around, what else have you been doing during COVID?
Trying to focus on my photography stuff, my photography business, trying to get clients and everything, but obviously that hasn't really been going so well for senior pictures. COVID has really, really affected the arts industry and everything, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other people feel the same about that.
Absolutely. Has your kind of focus shifted maybe from portraits to more landscape where you can go out and shoot while being socially distant?
That's why we're going to be taking this trip, is to, get our minds off COVID and everything. And in the process, just getting pictures and everything. It's going to be a really fun trip. So
that sounds awesome.
I know, right?
Cool. Well, I wish you great weather and a safe drive.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good to see you, Sam.
Hashtag deaf talent. Well, it's truly about showcasing that deaf talent.
Hashtag deaf talent is a show here at the Lyric Theater for the Rochester Fringe Festival.
And here in Rochester, we have the largest population of deaf people in the country. So it's really, really important to show what we can do here, where we live.
And I feel like that talent is just where we finally have an opportunity to express ourselves with doing art, ESL, dance, many different skills that we express.
I used to be on tour with a group called the Bay Area International Deaf Dancers Festival. It was really inspiring and beautiful to see so many talented, extremely skilled deaf dancers. And for me, it was really truly the first time that I felt inspired and that I was surrounded by people just like I was. And it really just clicked that I had to bring that type of event back home to Rochester.
I feel when the hearing audience or the hearing people locally when they hear about the deaf and the skills that we have, they'd be more perceptive. So we just have to put it out there that we have this kind of skill to offer to the audience. Artists, musicians, dancers, performers, entertainers, aerialists, all of the above.
We have so many talented performers. There's a ballerina, and she also does aerial rope. We have hip hop dance. There's ASL storytelling and ASL poetry. There are also other people that are signing songs. There's also a deaf drag queen that we have on our cast. So there's just really a lot of variety here, and it's a really beautiful group of people that we've all brought together. But I guess I really want the audience to know that not all deaf people are exactly the same, that we're all unique and we're all individual people. Some people speak verbally and some people use sign language, but what's important is to ask. But also, don't limit us, because I can do anything a hearing person can do except hear. And that's a very famous quote in the deaf community from Dr. I. King Jordan.
I was in the hearing professional ballet world for 10 years. It's really tough to be in the hearing deaf ballet world because the choreographer assumes you can't hear the music, so it means I have to be put behind the dancers so I can watch them. You know, I can dance. Just put me there. I just have to hear the music over and over and over and over and over and over. And I also use my peripherals vision as well.
We practice a lot. Like, no matter how many times you listen to music, still have to practice over and over and over. No matter how annoying it is, still have to listen to music all the time. I feel thankful because I'm glad that I have this opportunity to be part of the show. I'm sure if we increase more, if we see more deaf talents, maybe every year, then that's where people will see more, will get more representation. Maybe that's just the beginning.
Their audience responses to the show are raving about it. And I'm not just saying this as a performer. I ask, what do you thought? And they'll always say, wow. A lot of positive reviews about it. A lot of them are learning sign in the process too.
There are a lot of people who tend to set limitations and they tell them, you can't do this, you can't. But we're here to tell them, you're wrong, we can. And to understand the importance of showing what we can accomplish and not focus on oddest barriers and things that we can't do.
Hello, my name is Adrian Esposito. I am a filmmaker. When I first began making documentaries, they were more historical and educational. I made my first documentary, which was about my grandmother and other people who lived through World War II in Europe and Asia, called Aging Trees of Knowledge.
More recently, I met other people whose lives were also transformed by World War II. I wanted to tell their stories as well. It is one thing to see newsreels of World War II. It is another to hear a real person's experiences and thoughts.
That was really the beginning. One of the first narrative films I actually did, I didn't direct it. It was called Bury My Heart with Tonawanda.
John, what are you doing?
And what is your name, young man?
My name is John. What yours?
Chief Red Sky. Nice to meet you, John.
I wrote and edited that film. It's my first attempt, I would say, at trying to do storytelling and bring out the importance of Native people along with people with disabilities, especially Down syndrome. It's very, I think, important to be made. I don't think we've ever seen a film that combined both Down syndrome with the Native American element. And we were able to pull it off under hard conditions because it was a very low budget independent film. The reason I focus on disability in my filmmaking is because I myself have a disability, Asperger's with autism. One of the reasons I wanted to do Diffability Hollywood was because I had seen other documentaries like Hollywood Chinese, which was about the history of the Chinese and Asian community in Hollywood films. Then I saw another documentary film called Real Injun, which was about the history of Native Americans in Hollywood films and TV. And then I thought, wait a minute, why not do a documentary about something that's relevant to me, people with disabilities in Hollywood films and TV?
Even though we make up 20% of the population, we do not make up 20% of the population of characters on screen. We make up less than 1%.
One of the main goals for Diffability Hollywood is to eventually see people with disabilities like with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy as the action hero in movies, not just as the victims or saints or whatever, but to show us as the next Jason Statham, for example. I got the Lifetime Achievement Award because people believe in me in my filmmaking. I'm an important filmmaker that's presenting major and serious issues to the public. I thought it was a real honor to get the Lifetime Achievement Award. What was really special for me to get that was not the award itself, but was seeing people tell you how much importance it is to them in their lives, and how, I'm going to show this at my college, or, this was really interesting, informative film, Adrian, or, this is going to be the next cult classic, or something like that. I think that's the biggest payoff. I know there's a lot of misconceptions about people with Asperger's and autism and so forth making their own movies or narrative films or whatever, but I would say I'm living proof that that's a myth that's busted. I have done films, I will keep doing movies, and I feel that just because I have Asperger's, I'm not going to let that hold me back.
Hey Adrian, good to be talking to you.
It's good to talk to you too, Katie.
So it's been 3 years since we first shot your Arts in Focus. A lot has happened in the last 3 years, and a lot's happened in the last 6 months. So tell us about the last 3 years.
So in the last 3 years, I've worked on a documentary called Greetings from Tromaville, which is about Lloyd Kaufman and his movie company, Troma Entertainment. And I wrote and directed Clowns in the Woods, which is my first directorial debut as a filmmaker, because mostly I've done documentaries.
How was that learning experience, your first time directing?
I was directing it along with my friend Kerr Markham. We both were directing it, and we would take turns. And since a lot of the scenes were done outside, and it was a race against time, because sometimes it looked like it was going to rain. I wanted to get shots done so it didn't rain. So I wasn't too picky or fussy to get it done perfectly.
So did you like directing?
Oh, yeah, I did like directing it. I actually lost some weight directing this film. I went down to 271 pounds, and I would say, if anything, filmmaking is a very hard experience and difficult, but in the long run, it's good because you get to see the end result. Plus, along the way, when you're filming, you do get to lose some weight. So, for me, at least.
Well, that sounds like it's a good project, sign of a good project.
expect to see Clowns in the Woods next year. It has a long way to go to being finished with editing, sound.
Yeah, these things take time.
Yeah, but we will have a premiere at the Cinema Theater in May or April, which is across from Highland Park Diner. And from there on, I'm going to enter it into film festivals, and hopefully it will get recognition. A lot of people who worked on the film, like cast and crew, feel it's going to be a cult classic. We shall see.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited for you, and I'm excited for everyone to see Clowns in the Woods.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian.
For the last 3 years before I won the Tiny Desk contest, I was a teacher. I started teaching fiddle lessons. I kind of made a commitment right when I started teaching that I was never going to tell anyone that they shouldn't play. I don't think it's a teacher's job to discourage or put up a barrier to music. I think it's a teacher's job to just be supportive and allow people to explore. If you want to try to do music or any kind of art, that you should do it even if it's not super obvious. Because I think people can be really creative and figure out a way that works for them, and you don't have to play or even sound like everybody else, because music is just about making yourself happy and also connecting to other people through this awesome medium. The Tiny Desk contest is really what sparked New Avenue of just touring and playing all the time. I had been playing a lot in Minnesota before I won the Tiny Desk contest, and I hadn't really given it as much thought at that time, I guess, about accessibility. So when we started traveling, I realized that pretty much only about 30% of the places we played had ramps. If I was a little kid with a disability going to shows and I saw someone with a wheelchair having to be lifted on stage, that just doesn't send a super positive message about that we want you to be here, we want you to perform here. So I started thinking about what that meant, and realizing that in order to have real accessibility in the arts, you really have to make sure that the spaces for performers are also accessible. We have a long ways to go before that is actualized, but I'm hoping to talk about it enough where we can start really making some changes. Even if you have a disability, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, and that you can still just be yourself, and eventually you'll find the people that will help support you, because I really do think it's better to not try to suppress who we are. You'll enjoy life more if you just are who you are and you're proud of that.
Arts in Focus is made possible in part by a gift from Drs. Dawn and Jack Lipson to support performance, innovation, and accessibility of the arts in the Rochester community.